Welcome to the Dwayne Kerrigan Podcast, and I'm your host, Dwayne Kerrigan. With 35 years in business and close to 30 ventures across 12 industries, I've seen a lot. Amid the celebrity allure of entrepreneurship, many exceptional entrepreneurs remain shadowed. Here, I team up with these hidden talents to unveil their challenges and successes. Dive in with me to unearth entrepreneurial gems, learn from our experiences, and get educated. So I'm glad you're back on the show. Welcome, Heather Moyse is back to the show.
Yeah.
How you doing?
I'm doing great.
So
How are you?
For those of you who don't, if you're a new listener or you haven't seen Heather's previous episode, which was a long time ago, or it feels like it, it's got to be like over a year and a half ago, or something like that.
Yeah, maybe.
But, yeah, I think it's been a while. But Heather is a 4-time Olympian, 2-time gold Olympic medalist, master's in occupational therapy, inductee, first female to be inducted to the World Rugby Hall of Fame.
First Canadian female.
And only, right?
Only Canadian female. Yeah,
Only
second Canadian ever and only Canadian female, yeah.
Yeah,
So far.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully there's more, but
yeah.
That's the whole point, to having amazing athletes in Canada. And then author of Redefining Realistic. And I think last time we talked, did you say you were working on another book?
I might have. That didn't happen yet.
Okay.
I am. Yeah.
I know it didn't, but
the problem is that it's not really a problem. The issue is that a few different book option, like ideas, came to the forefront. So now it's figuring out which one to put out first. So which one do I want to actually further develop and get out? There have been some requests from people after I've spoken at events where they're just like, oh man, I would love if you for different, going in depth under certain topics. And I'm like, wow, that's a really great idea. And then there are other ones that aren't necessarily tied specifically to what I speak about, but I tend to get a lot of questions about these things. So there's another whole kind of book topic so there are a few ideas. So right now I just need to kind of siphon those down into what comes first, what comes second, what comes third. Yeah.
Guys, so if you haven't read the book, Redefining Realistic, you should read it. And we talked about it in depth on our first episode. So you can always go back. We're not going to rehash that whole thing, but just a couple of pieces from that. And this is kind of why there was a lot of reasons why I wanted to have you on. We talked about having you on. I saw you last summer. We spent a bunch of time together. You literally are one of my favorite people. And my wife's, she loves you. And so, but from a mindset perspective, I really felt like we haven't had a conversation recently about mindset. I mean, well, everything we talk about is mindset here, but it's a specific one. And I know last time we talked, like we saw each other personally, you were talking about like new content. You're a speaker. I didn't mention that at the beginning either. So you speak at, corporate events, you speak for businesses, you do some coaching, all that kind of stuff. And, who better to be coached by somebody who has, lived the ups and downs in competitive sport at the highest level. Heather is a genetic phenom. Like, she is such an athlete. But you could be, there's lots of genetic phenoms out there, but not all of them win just because of their genetics. That there's like a big component of mindset. And so I just, and honestly, like I was like, oh God, I'd really like to get Heather on. And so we've been reaching out to you, and you're super busy. So I'm glad you took the time, and we don't have a ton of time today because you're on the limited time frame.
I'll come back, I promise.
We're actually talking about doing a few panels.
Oh yeah.
And so I would be interested in having you. We're going to have a woman in business panel. And so I'd love to have you on that, or we could do a performance panel and, so anyways, you could fit in anywhere. So thanks for coming back on.
Oh, thanks for having me back.
So I'm just curious, like, the first question actually I would ask you is what you just basically said was like, you're working on a new book, and there's been some people who have said, like, from your speeches, they've indicated that this would be really interesting. You thought it was a good idea. What are the topics? What are the thoughts that people are that you're speaking about that people are really like, looking and going, wow, that's important.
I remember last time when we were talking, you're right. I was kind of honing in on new content and restructuring my keynotes and that sort of thing for what I was delivering. And I feel like I've really hit something that people are really resonating with. And basically it just comes down to, well, a couple of things, but basically the champion mindset and how the mindset that it takes to be a champion in any industry, because those are the things that are transferable across industries. It's not the specific skills required to execute the job or execute the sport. It's actually the mindset that takes you over. And everyone's going to be like, yeah, well, we know it's mindset. But I'm not talking about grit and determination and time blocking and, habit creation and all those things that we all know. Yes, that is a specific mindset for success. But those alone only work if nothing goes wrong. Like if no obstacles pop up along the way, if you aren't dealing with internal self-sabotage and that sort of thing. So the champion mindset is those things that help you make the choices that are right for you, not just what society is telling us that we're supposed to be doing or what success is supposed to look like. But it's not about just pursuing that part. It's about thriving, which means feeling successful, not just being successful. And so in those in a lot of what I'm doing now, it's kind of doing the parallel between a sports athlete and the corporate athlete and bringing and tying those things together, because I mean the similarities are they're not just similar, they're the same, like the same requirements in terms of how you look at things and how you structure things and how you prevent burnout and have sustainable high performance instead of just high performance one off and then you're just burnt out and living a life that you don't even recognize anymore. So my coaching clients now tend to be extremely outwardly successful people who are just at a point where they're wondering why they don't feel more successful, why they're feeling ungrounded or not quite balanced. And that's, I enjoy that. It becomes a different kind of goal. It's not about achieving some kind of monetary or career goal, but it's the goal ends up being more about just generally thriving and having that balance between, with everything that you love to do and go after. So it's really interesting. But looking at that champion mindset, I focus in my keynotes on mind shifts. And we're living in a society right now that is so focused on extremes. We're being told that if we're not cold plunging for 22 hours a day and we're eating more than once a month and we're not getting up at 3 a.m. to do our, 7-hour morning routine, but still manage to get 9 hours sleep. If we're not doing all those things, then we obviously either don't want it badly enough or, we're not good enough at what we're doing or we're going to fail. Like regardless, we're going to fail. And people look at Olympic champions and they think that those are people of extremes. They go to the extremes, they push themselves to extremes. And I am not an extreme. So I have never lived my life or done my training or pursued the Olympics in a world, in a place of extremes. I've managed to keep that balance, value-based decision making, along with prioritizing the things that I felt were going to move the needle, while maintaining that balance for myself. And I think people are finding that refreshing to know that you can be extremely successful by still maintaining that level of balance. And people don't need to feel guilt and shame for not doing all of the things that social media is telling us to do. And I think some people just need to be reminded and feel and be re-empowered with the things that actually matter to them and not what matters to society as a whole. So it's been really, really fun and refreshing. And the feedback has been really, really great. So yeah, it's been wild so far. It's been great.
Do you mind if we dig into this a little bit more?
Yeah, I just unloaded a whole lot of stuff.
You did a pretty big dump there, girl.
Yeah, a whole lot of stuff that we could
holy
unpack.
Information, Batman. Listen, woman, this was, it's amazing. We had
more than 5 minutes today? Oh,
yeah,
right,
okay. You're not getting off the call on time. No, I'm just kidding. So
did I breathe there? I don't even know.
I don't think you did.
Yeah, that's fine.
That was good.
Breathing's overrated.
Good lungs. Okay, I'm just going to sum a little bit of this up and then maybe we could just, here's what I heard. Champion mindset is, and I'm going to abbreviate as to what I heard in my ear versus necessarily exactly verbatim what you said, but champion mindset is not necessarily about the strategy, which all levels of strategy, you're right. They work until they don't work. Anybody can sail a ship in calm waters. And then what happens when, the shit hits the fan type of thing. And then, so you are really more focusing on thriving, the feeling of success, the feeling of balance, the feeling of being grounded. And then integrating, what happens in sport and what happens in corporate, America, Canada, whatever you want to call it. Preventing burnout, which I love, and creating the consistency, and then just the mind shifts of extremes versus what matters to you. That was kind of my summation. What I really loved was about, those, there's people like who you're coaching are feeling successful, or outwardly look successful. Sorry. Yeah. And then, but inside they don't feel like that fulfillment. It's, Tony talks about the science of achievement versus the art of fulfillment.
Oh yeah.
And
good way of putting it.
Yeah. And so, but I would love to dig a little bit into, we can go anywhere, but the first thing that you said was, the thriving, and then, the similarities between sport and corporate. Why don't we start there and just talk about the essence of thriving? Because I think you're right. It's funny. Like this morning I was not thinking about this podcast because I just was like, whatever. We know each other so well, and we care about each other at like a full friendship level, and or at least I do for you. You probably don't even like me. But I was thinking, I usually do think time in the morning, and I've been off my schedule or my routine for several months actually, because we bought a business and I've been really grinding it out. But I got back to like some consistent think time in the morning, some more meditation, kind of also trying to look and get back to balance and having that feeling. But it was during my think time, I was doing a lot of thinking about what separates, those who, are able to rise to that level of success, and those who fall because of the focus of the pain, the struggle, when things are not going well, when the water does get rough. And so if you don't mind, I'd love to hear what your perspective is.
Oh gosh, Dwayne, there's so much. And which is why, I've never officially named it, but my coaching, I call it square peg coaching, because I've always been the square peg. I don't fit in round holes. I don't have a one size fits all coaching program, because I don't believe that everyone is one size fits all. I mean, I have a framework that I tend to follow. I created something called the Podium Process that helps kind of move people through these phases that everyone goes through, whether they realize it or not, on their way to success. But everyone's so different. And for some people, something I say might really resonate, while something else that I say, 10 minutes later might be like, oh man, it's just a different way of saying it, but it really rings true. And I think that part of the champion mindset, having that champion mindset and being able to kind of move through, well, first of all, the Podium Process is like a triangle framework, and it starts with its dream, plan, pursue, perform, or execute. If it's a performance-based kind of goal that you have. So, I mean, the dream is all about clarity, and that's with every coaching. You need the more clear you can get on what you actually want. And the problem, like a lot of people get stuck in this section. And the reason why it is like a triangle is because less and less people make it to the top, right? Everybody's got a dream. Everybody's got that thing in the back of their head that they've been wanting to do forever. But what prevents them from moving from that phase to the planning phase? And then what is it that prevents them from moving from the planning phase to the actually taking that step and starting to pursue what they really want? And those gaps have to do with self-sabotage. And then within the pursue phase, while you're pursuing what you want, that's when you are finally like being confronted with external obstacles, the injuries, or the economic downturn, or the competitor who just moved in across the street from your business. Like all of those external obstacles that happen, those only happen in the pursue phase, but so many people don't even get there. And so that champion mindset is like it's really about posing questions and reframing things that you're thinking, so that you can actually still see the possibilities regardless of whatever you're facing. So regardless of, it's the reframing things to poke doubt in the limited visions that we've been taught to have, that what we've been told is realistic, growing up, and all of those things that actually make you want to pursue it. And then what is realistic? Can you recover from hip surgery and be performing at the Rugby World Cup 7 months later? Can you, win a gold medal at the age of, I don't even know how old I was, 35 or some things. Anyway, like all of these different things that people traditionally see as being unrealistic or impossible, put these limitations on us. And having this champion mindset is, one, being able to reframe things so that you can actually see the possibilities and choose to pursue those possibilities, and pursue it in a way that feels, that doesn't feel as risky as it may have prior to having certain mind shifts that can help you move forward. But it also helps you make the choices that are more value-based and not necessarily society-based, that instead of just leading to a point of outward success, it's actually helping you lead to a point of fulfillment and feeling successful. So there are a lot of people out there who are seen to be extremely successful people who are not necessarily feeling as successful as other people would feel. One, how the expression, it's lonely at the top. Well, outwardly successful, but not feeling fulfilled, not feeling like they're thriving. They have no one to share that with. So do you want that? If you do, great. If you don't, and you'd rather, go with people or elevate with people or do something different, and what are your priorities? We get lost in what society is telling us is important. And that's partly because we're being bombarded all the time with other people's values, other people's expectations, other people's opinions about what we should be wanting. And so really, it comes down to finding the time and the space to actually get clear at the very bottom, get clear on what you really want, like what every person really, really wants. And figuring out, then going a little deeper and, okay, well, what are my resources? Doing a little bit of a SWOT analysis. What do I have? What do I need? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? How can I move to the next? What is the whole picture? Where am I? Where do I want to end up? And then you start that planning phase. And that planning phase is where you figure out that strategy, but also figuring out a strategy for when things, start getting in the way. That's where you start being extremely intentional with what you're doing, extremely intentional with your time. And when I talk about intentional with your time and preventing burnout, that stuff comes down to, a lot of people talk about burnout meaning you're working too many hours. That's not how you get burnout. Burnout is not just about enough rest time. It's about recovery. And those are two different things. And people think that they're resting and recovering, but they're not. The recovery comes from doing things that actually fill your cup. It's active. It's not a passive resting phase, and you need both of them. And people are just not recovering. They're spending their time doom scrolling on social media, or that's their lunch breaks, that's their evening breaks. And so a lot of it comes with recovery and how we face things. Wow, I just dumped a lot more on you.
You did. Well, it's great.
We're doing 10 podcasts in one.
Keep dumping. I love it. Well, but you make a couple of good points there. One takeaway was like that in regards to the recovery thing, and people think like they're, and they're sitting on the couch and they're chilling out and they're surfing, and then they, they're watching the news and they're seeing like, oh, like this is happening in the world. This is going on in Israel and Palestine. This is going on in Russia and the Ukraine, or this is what's happening in the US and the tariffs and the trade and the this and the that. And then they get all tied up in it. Like I'm not going to say it doesn't mean anything, but the noise from point A to point B probably doesn't mean anything, right? Because it's not within our control. But then you also made a comment, and I think it's so true. And I think a lot of people, either successful people who don't have joy, really struggle. I've been there, and I've sacrificed success, money, to find joy. Mm-hmm. And then when you find joy, you're like, man, I should be more successful. So like our minds play tricks on us, and we're, we're
bombarded. We're bombarded by those images all the time, and being told constantly that that's what we should want. But that's not what leads to happiness or a place of fulfillment or joy. And it's becoming a real, that's why I have my coaching clients, because they need that almost permission to not want what society is telling them that they want. And they need that accountability and that restructuring so that they can actually, and even just the space away to get clear on what they want. Like, people think that they're taking a vacation. By the way, you are not recovered after a family vacation. Just putting that out there. And there's no family vacation on the planet where you're going to come back feeling really rested. So those are fun and they have their place and they're super important. But I don't think anyone should mistake a family vacation for recovery. See, the thing with I know you're interested in recovery and burnout prevention and stuff, because that's where sustainable high performance comes from. And the thing that I'm realizing is that, like, I've done a ton of research and trying to, do this so I can speak, so I feel qualified speaking on it. And when you look back, we had rest and recovery built into our days. Do you remember when stores weren't open on Sundays? Am I dating myself right now? Totally am. Okay. But I do, but I'm from I'm from a little place, so we held on to those traditions a little bit longer. Exactly. Let's just say that so that I could still, hold on to my, but yes, stores were like, nothing was open on Sundays. And it was a time when we also didn't have computers in our pockets, right? So our evenings, like when we came home from work, it was forced rest and recovery. Like, there weren't TVs, we weren't getting emails in the evenings because, well, we didn't have emails anyway. So evenings were rest and recovery. Weekends were rest and recovery. Like, nothing was open on Sundays. So that was a forced recovery. So one thing, and I haven't seen this anywhere else. So I haven't stolen it. I don't know if anyone else has come up with this before, but I looked at, in terms of athletes, and now trying to transfer it over to corporate athletes, in terms of this recovery piece. And what I've noticed with sports athletes is that we have the higher level you go in sports, the more emphasis and importance is placed on recovery. I just don't see that in any other industry. And the more you want to get out of your body or your brain, the more rest and recovery you need, as counterintuitive as it feels in the moment. To get the most out of yourself, the more recovery you need. So I was looking at, in terms of sports athletes, and I found that we would always take what I called, and again, I don't know if this has ever been said before, micro, meso, and macro levels of recovery. And micro levels are on the daily basis. It would be like within a training program or within your days at work. How are you able to kind of like steal these little moments where you can kind of get rejuvenated in the day, right? Whether it's, can you actually ignore your email and actually have an hour-long lunch break where you can maybe go for a walk? Like, where can you steal those moments and have those little bits of recovery throughout your day? Those are micro. Meso levels of recovery for sports athletes, they would be on the weekly basis. You hear about athletes who always take one day off a week from training. They train super hard, sometimes twice a day, all of that stuff, but they always have one recovery day. I always took two, just so you know, never two in a row, but always Thursdays and Sundays. I always took 2 days off. So those are meso levels of recovery. But again, back in the day, those were built in with our Sundays, right? You couldn't go grocery shopping. You couldn't go to the laundromat. You couldn't go pick up whatever. Things were just, you had to hang out with friends or family. You had to just read a book. Like, you weren't, newspapers weren't delivered on Sundays. You had a rest from all of that stuff. So it was forced there. And now athletes still respect that one day off a week, but the rest of the world is expected to be on their email, be answering things, be doing, all, like, it just, technology has increased the efficiency, yes, but it was supposed to increase our efficiency to allow more time for us to do the things that fill our cup and that we're passionate about. But instead, all it's done is increased people's expectations of how available we should be at all times, how quickly we should respond, all of these things that just make it so much harder and make us feel more pressured and weighed down. So that, though, is your meso level of recovery. So if people can somehow build that back in there, then it will do wonders. The macro level of recovery, as you can probably guess, is on a seasonal or annual basis. for some people in the corporate world, it might be like a quarterly thing that they do where it's not so big annual, but maybe smaller chunks in quarters. But for athletes, like at the end of a bobsled season, bobsled athletes are taking 2 or 3 months completely doing nothing. And then when they start from their foundation again. Like, what is important? What do they need? They start with their base and foundation, and they build everything back up again. And I realize that corporate athletes can't take 2 or 3 months completely off and do that. But there is something to be said about attending a retreat or going to something where you're completely cut off from everything, where you have the space and the distance from everyday stuff, from the noise of the expectations, opinions, and values of other people, where you can, one, have that recovery, but two, also get the clarity that you're even going in the right direction, right? So one, it's to build the capacity and the energy that you need to fulfill what you want to fulfill. But two, it's to make sure you're going in the right direction. So that whole, one of the mind shifts I talk about in my keynotes is, well, the phrase 2 steps forward, 1 step back, where to me, it's a phrase of discouragement, right? Like, oh, I started making progress and oh my gosh, again, we just came in with another problem. And oh, looks like we're making progress and oh, frig, something else happened. Like that's just, to me, that's what I think about when I hear that phrase, but I think we have it backwards. So when I talk about these shifts, I say, shift it and flip the script. So instead of 2 steps forward, 1 step back, maybe it's actually supposed to be 1 step back, 2 steps forward. So in order to have the capacity and the perspective we need to go in the right direction and to make strides going forward, maybe we need to have the 1 step back. Maybe we need to build that in as part of our strategy. So 1 step back, 2 steps forward is more a strategy for sustainable high performance instead of this phrase of discouragement that's just frustrating. So it's just a little thing that makes people start thinking, like, instead of it being this concept of luxury or I'll rest when this is finished, I'll rest and take a break or go on a trip when we've achieved this quota or when we've done whatever, instead of waiting and thinking that it's a bonus and a gift and a luxury at the end. Why are we not building that into our strategy, into our actual strategic plan, just like athletes do? Why are we not building this in so that it becomes, so that we're not getting burnt out, so that we're doing the things that are actually filling our buckets and making us feel empowered and fulfilled?
I love it. I love it. And so this just brought me back to a question that I had at the very beginning, especially when you were talking about the 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's that I love the concept of 1 step back, 2 steps forward, because it really changes the shift, and it's not the same words, just placed in a different position. And I when I recall my own personal experiences years ago, I used to get so frustrated with that kind of concept, like, something get in the way, and then it's a delay, and it's whatever, and a lot of times I would refer to it as a denial when it was really only a delay. And then later on, I started to just frame, now when things go wrong, I'm like, oh, this is amazing. Like, I literally look at it like this, which I never did before, but I look at it like, okay, this is amazing. This is the universe, or this is grace, or this is fate here to
Tell
put
me
a
to
pause on
pause.
something for me to learn and get a lesson. And whether that lesson is, I need more space, I need more time to myself, I need more balance, or I need more education, or I need to have more patience, or I need to have more
oh my gosh, I'm
understanding,
going in the wrong direction.
or I'm going in the wrong direction. And had I, not stopped and turned and went the other way, I would have walked off a cliff,
Yeah.
And so, but it brings me back to the question that I had was, you had used the word reframe earlier. We had talked about the triangle with dream, planning, and pursue, and about the external obstacles. And then you had used the word reframe, that you teach your clients to reframe that. Can we talk a little bit about that? What your processes are or have been, or what you teach, or some of the concepts that you kind of work with in that? Because I think that that's like, look, I don't think anybody here is going to be listening to us and be like, holy shit, like, but what
Yeah,
I
they
do,
are.
well, some of them will, but I mean, I think they will, in terms of understanding that balance piece. To me, that is like, you're right. I am very focused on like recovery and burnout. I run at an extremely rapid pace. And if I'm not careful. It's, as a matter of fact, we were having this conversation last night where, Tennille was like, she would originally first said like, I feel like you're stressed. And I'm like, I don't feel stressed, but I do feel, I feel a little tight and restricted. And so it was like, we had a really, really good conversation about it and about what some of the meanings might be that I'm attaching and stuff. But, when you said reframe, it was timely. And I'm curious if you could share some of this stuff for the audience, because truthfully, I think this is the key to where people struggle so much, is they don't know how to reframe when the waters get rough, when there's a delay, or a denial, and they can't reframe it. What tools can we give them?
In my opinion, the best tools are questions. So it's about figuring out which questions to ask when is a little bit, but part of my job, first of all, when someone comes with me with a goal, my question is, well, why do you want that? And then if I get an answer, then I say, okay, well, why do you want that? And we distill this down to a root why, what I call a root why. Basically, the deeper you can go in why you want something, and it really almost comes down to more like a feeling. Sometimes you don't realize why you're pursuing that promotion, but really it's actually you're pursuing validation, right? So we're looking at superficial things, but if we can actually figure out really what we're really pursuing in pursuing that goal, then it does a couple of things. One, it moves you further along the breaking point spectrum. Everyone has a breaking point of the things that they can tolerate, the things they want to deal with, the bullshit they want to manage, whatever. It moves it further along that. The deeper why you can go, the more you can handle, because the more you're rooted in what's really important to you. Another reason why the why part is important is because if that ultimate thing that you were seeking in the first place, that ultimate goal, is not necessarily possible anymore for whatever reason, in like injury or something, health concerns or external factors, then it's not as upsetting when you actually realize there are different ways to pursue that same feeling. So there may be multiple ways. Like you might be sticking that feeling of validation on achieving this one particular goal. But if you can actually distill it down to this particular feeling that you're actually seeking, then you realize that there are multiple ways or multiple goals that you could pursue to achieve that same level of fulfillment. So it's actually a really great like backup to have your root whys, so that you're not feeling completely lost and everything's not attached on one particular outcome.
Yeah. So I'm like, the way I'm like, I'm thinking about that, exactly what I'm thinking in my head is like somebody, you had mentioned, like somebody wants a promotion, right? It's like, well, I want to have a promotion. Well, what do you want to, why do you want why is that important to you? I think that was the question. Why is that, why do you want that? So why do you want that? Or why is that important to you? Well, I want to make more money. Well, why is that important to you? Well, it'll allow me to, afford certain things, like go away with trips on the family and blah, blah, blah.
Send my kids to university. Yeah.
And then you keep on rooting that down. And the root why is, it could be love and connection. It could be certainty. It could be,
it could be financial security. It could be feeling validation as a parent. It could be, whatever those things are, for sure.
Yeah. I'd be able to go out and tell people that I'm got this position or this title, and I'm make this much money. So significance,
exactly.
So, and then like, to your point, it's like, well, I'm just hallucinating here based on what you're saying, is like, once you realize, that root why, it's like, well, how else could I get, if all of a sudden you lose your job, it's like, well, if your root why was love and connection with your kids, I mean, you got more time to have love and connection with your kids, right? It's like, and truthfully, your kids don't care about what you make. We often create that in our own mind, right? Is that what it comes down to for people? Is like that? Is it love and connection? Is it certainty? Is it significance? And then is there another question, like, other than why do you want that? Which I think is a really great question, is like, why is that important to you? Why do you want that?
I think that's kind of what gets things started, right? You need to figure out, okay, this is what you want. You get clear on what they want. And then all of a sudden you throw at them, okay, why do you want that? Like, why do you want to lose 40 pounds? Like, why is that important to you? Why is it 40 pounds? Like, why not 10? Why not 60? Like, why 40? Or why, like, is it because society is telling you that you will, like, that's what you want? Or is it that was your ideal weight when you were in your 20s? Like, if we can kind of figure out what exactly is behind that, is that he or she feels like they don't look healthy? Is it because they don't actually feel healthy? Is it because they aren't actually healthy? Like, it's maybe not even weight, it's health that they're looking for. So finding out what the actual goal is, sometimes people don't realize what their goal is underneath the goal they're presenting. If that makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Some people want to lose 40 pounds, but they don't want to give drinking, eating sugar, and smoking.
Yeah.
You can still lose 40 pounds and still do all three of those things, but
And to me, it's never about judgment. Like, to me, it doesn't matter what your goal is or why you have that goal, but like, I will call you out if you're saying you don't have time for things, or if you say whatever, because everyone has the same amount of time. How you spend your time is a reflection of your priorities and your values. So that's all. And some people like to pretend their priorities are something like what society thinks they are, but their choices and that reveals everything. That reveals really where your priorities and your, that stuff go.
What's the core source of that? Why do people do that? It's so funny we're having this conversation, because I literally had this conversation this morning with our team.
Really?
I literally just talked about priorities. And I literally can't make this up.
Your choices reveal your priorities.
Well, they do. That's right. Mm-hmm. And so I'm curious, from your perspective and from your experience with coaching people, what have you seen? Like, why do people struggle so much? I mean, this is a question that I've asked myself. Like, I'm super disciplined. Like, it's like I am probably to extreme measures. So sometimes I struggle understanding, like, what people go, they say they want something and then they go and do something else. And you're like, that didn't make any sense.
Okay, well, let's talk about comfort zone for a minute. Comfort zone, people are talking about comfort zone all the time, but I think some people lose the plot a little bit when they're thinking of just physical comfort. And comfort zone is not just physical comfort, it's mental and emotional and physical comfort. So it's not physically about, I'm not going to go to the gym because I'm going to be sore. That could be one thing, that they're avoiding being sore. But another one could be that they're avoiding embarrassment, or they're avoiding doing something that's not part of their status quo, just breaking their habits, like just doing something that's not just ingrained in their normal behavior. So autopilot and status quo is extremely, extremely powerful. When I talk to executives and CEOs and high achievers, like rooms of high achievers and that sort of thing, to me, I have to be very clear that when I do talk about comfort zone, I'm not talking about the people who appear to be lazy and aren't ambitious. I'm also talking about the type A personalities who are go, 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 because go, 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 go is their comfort zone, is what makes them comfortable. Stopping, slowing down, pausing, taking a vacation, turning their phones off on Sundays, that is discomfort for them. That is uncomfortable. They can't imagine not being able to be reached. That is their discomfort. So you do have to step outside of your comfort zone to change things, to take things to another level. Any change is uncomfortable. And for a lot of these executives and high performers, who I'm assuming are a lot of your listeners, for them, they're like, oh yeah, man, I don't mind being uncomfortable. They're thinking physical discomfort, like go hardworking and whatever, but to them, that's their comfort zone. You just admitted your comfort zone is you're a grinder. That's your natural whatever to go. And you're probably find it really difficult to stop and slow down, or someone in your shoes or like you would find it hard to stop and slow down.
It was impossible for me to do that. And,
and those are who my clients are. My clients are extremely successful, but they're feeling burnt out. They're feeling like, I don't know how. And I think work-life balance got thrown around so much, like a while ago. Remember, it was just work-life balance. And everyone, all of a sudden they're like, work-life balance, it's a myth. It doesn't happen. It's not. And that's because people were talking about work-life balance in terms of like time allocation. I think like same amount of time at work, same amount of time at home, but life is not just one thing. Like your whole life wheel, like in levels of satisfaction and happiness, involve, spirituality if someone's spiritual, education and personal development, family and friends, your romantic life, your career and your work, your physical health, your sense of appearance, like how comfortable, how satisfied you are with your appearance. All of that ties together in terms of your entire life. So it's not just one thing balancing with one other thing, like a teeter-totter. And I think that's where people get screwed up when they talk about work-life balance, because they're basically saying it's just two things. And really, to truly thrive and feel like you have a sense of balance, it just means levels of satisfaction that are kind of even in all areas, kind of nice, well-rounded. And I think that's where a lot of people struggle. So once that gets figured out in what areas people aren't satisfied in, then that's where you figure out what areas need to be addressed in terms of just kind of feeling generally grounded and balanced.
I love this. Yeah. I mean, where do you think, okay, couple things. Is there a difference between women and men? And if so, what are the things that women should be looking out for? And what should the things that men should be looking out for based on what you've seen?
There is a difference. But I do think that in terms of going through that podium process, like taking those strides through, I think that I feel like women are the ones who everybody has a self-sabotage or struggle with certain issues with self-sabotage. Unless you're a narcissist, and then you don't have to worry about it. But basically, everyone kind of has their levels of things that hold them back. And I don't like, there could be very successful people out there that might be we're not talking about work. It might be something that's holding them back in their relationships or in their personal lives. And if you're go, 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 and you're like, no, I'm totally fine. There's nothing wrong. I'm not burnt out at work. But what in your world is suffering? Like, what other aspects of your life are suffering? Because if you're not seeing suffering in your work, if you're not resting and recovering properly, something else is. I think that women find it a little, I feel like women tend to be judged a little bit more for taking breaks. I think just society has historically kind of, there have been these lulls. Obviously, for a while, women were working at home, like homemakers, and working full time as parents and as a mom, and doing all these things. And then when they joined the workforce, then it was that they were still managing. They were now doing double duties and that sort of thing. And so now, if they're not doing all of those things, some of them feel like they're not doing enough. A lot of women, I would say more women than men, almost feel like they need a sense of permission to do certain things. Women are less likely to take a break because to them it looks like luxury and like they're being lazy or luxury, and they shouldn't be doing that because they've got kids or because they've got a job and doing all those things. So men tend to be a little bit better. I'm not saying they're perfect, but they tend to be a little bit better. They tend to, blend work and recovery together. For example, like a business round of golf.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah. So like, come on, I know business gets done on the golf course. I understand that.
Yeah.
And connections are made and whatever, but there aren't many women who are saying, we're going to go for a business spa day. Like, people, it's not like, that just doesn't happen. Or if they're golfers, they don't say.
Totally just thinking this. Yeah.
Right. So to them, they would be like, oh my gosh, I can't do that because blah, blah, blah. Men make it a point to do that. Like, there's some people I know who are at, and of course their company also pays for them to do charity golf tournaments. And so they're, doing all of these various things. And so which is wonderful. I'm not begrudging that at all. I'm just saying women need to do more of that. Women need to not think that it's selfish or self-indulgent to do those breaks. They're the hardest ones. I think men love it when I'm like, you need to build that in as part of your like success strategy. And they're like, yeah. And women are like, what do you mean I have to, what do you mean take a break? Like just like a 2-minute break? No, I don't mean a 2-minute break. So it's harder for them to deal with what they think people will think of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is self-sabotage.
Yeah. Oh,
I mean, it's that
100%.
voice inside
The
making you
naysayers.
feel like you're getting judged,
Yeah.
or, people will judge me if I do this, or they'll think
Sometimes
this
that's
if I do
true.
that.
Like
Yeah.
the voice inside your head is sometimes a reflection of the voice that other people are saying, but it is still self-sabotage. You don't have to make your choices based on those voices, again, whether it's a voice in your head or whether it's a voice of somebody else. And that's where that self-empowerment comes from. That's where taking the time completely away to be a little more solid in what your goals are, what your values and priorities are. And when you come back, it's a little bit easier to say no to the things that don't align with what you want, or the things that, even if they're a good choice, sometimes saying no to good means saying yes to amazing. So it kind of, the things that really truly align and rejuvenate you and get you to where you want to go.
How much, like, just as you were talking about this, a question popped into my head that, how much do you think a part of this is that people devalue their time, or don't value their time enough, and then they say yes to too many things, and then get committed, and then if they don't, if they don't follow through, then they're not trustworthy, they're not reliable, they don't, you know what I mean? Like, do you think that's a piece of it?
Well, there's a lot of it, but it's for different reasons. For some people, they kind of just mismanage time and they overcommit themselves without realizing it. And that's just because they either don't have a calendar written out, or they, first it just maybe a little bit of lack of organization and actually visually seeing how much time they have. And for some people, it's truly just that they don't know how to say no. They may even on the spot want to say no, but they may not know how to say no graciously without feeling like you're letting someone down, or that they're not going to like you anymore. Like there's stuff rooted in everything to do with our childhood's rearing its head all the time. Like things that happened there once when you might have said no and you're like, oh my gosh, Heather's a bit like something where you got whatever. So some people really struggle with that, or they got so praised as a child every time they said yes that it's ingrained. They're so helpful. Oh my gosh, they're so kind. They're so generous. They're so giving. They're so, if that is ingrained in a child, then they grow up, and however deeply rooted it is, it might be, well, if I say no, it might look like I'm not gracious, that I'm not kind, that I'm not giving, and that I'm not, so the fear of what other people will think. So that's, the quote, oh gosh, what is it? Like, what would you do if you knew you could not fail? Whatever. Okay. Um, Brene Brown said a quote that stuck with me, and it was, what would you do if you knew nobody would say this about you? And that is actually, in all the research I've done, I mean, we don't actually fear failure at all. Failure is literally a moot point. If we celebrated failure, everyone would try and do it. So it's not failure that we're actually fearing. What we fear is what we assume failure will bring. What we're really afraid of is deep rooted is the judgment of other people.
Yeah, not being
Is
enough.
lack of connection, of not being enough, of isolation because we failed, so nobody wants to be with us. Like it's human nature is about connection and feeling like we're enough. And if you try something and you fail, or even if you try something that is different from everyone else and you like, oh my gosh, they might think that I think I'm better than them, so they're gonna, what are they going to say if I'm doing this? A lot of what controls what we do and what we don't do has to do with what we think other people are going to say about us, or how we're going to be judged. And that is the biggest and hardest thing to overcome, especially in a society when we're bombarded by messages like 24/7, of other people's opinions, of other people's opinions whose identities are anonymous, like masked, like by anything. And it's a real challenge, and it's a real problem.
What are your recommendations to people to stop that cycle? Because it feels like, what I've seen is like people get into a cycle and, they just don't know how to stop it, whether it's a bad relationship or, I shouldn't say a bad relationship, but an unfulfilled relationship, whether it's a business that is either unfulfilled, unprofitable, or, stressful, children, like the list goes on and on. What would you say, or what about how to break that cycle?
I think part of it is at the very bottom of that podium is clarity of why you think it's broken and clarity of what you really want. So the why is the relationship not working? Why is why do you feel that these things are broken? And I think that clarity only comes from time away from all of it, time away from other people's expectations, from social media, from all of that stuff. And it's not just like a weekend. You need to go somewhere where you actually are rested, rejuvenated, like something where you can actually become. Some people don't even know how to do that. They don't know how to be alone with their thoughts. They don't know how to do that stuff, but that's the only way that you'll actually be able to hear your own inner thoughts without all the voices and the expectations and opinions of other people. So I don't know if we talked about this last time when we were chatting on the podcast, but I've been playing around with the idea of retreats, and just doing these things where it's helping people figure out how to properly rest and recover, like a sports athlete, like a corporate athlete, like, how do you do that? And how can you become clear and actually get clarity on what you want and not what society's telling you that you should want? And it's the same thing. Like, the part of the clarity is what happened and why did we get to this point? There may not be a turn. There may not be you may be, I guess, past the point of no return, but you might not be. And there might be a way to remedy things and fix things or turn it around, or, hopefully, the clients I get are before it gets to those points where you can kind of help steer them in a direction where they are thriving. Sometimes the answer is leaving your significant other, or breaking up that partnership. And whether it's a business partner or life partner, sometimes that is the right decision, but that doesn't necessarily mean it has to consider it a failed thing. It can be a successful thing that just has run its course, right? So we can look at things in a more positive way and just moving things forward. But I think the only way to break those cycles and to actually take ownership of where you are and also where you want things to go is totally stepping away and getting clear on stuff. For some people, it might take a week. For some people, it's a long weekend. But it's being alone, like learning to be alone with your thoughts. And I'm not talking about meditating. I know, like, meditating has done wonders for people. I am not. I'm not a meditator. I shouldn't say that because that's defining my identity. But I don't meditate. But I am big on mindfulness and being in the moment. And I know how to be in the moment. I was raised kind of doing that. My favorite place on the planet is our little family cabin that has no insulation and no Wi-Fi and no TV. And, it's like stepping back into a time capsule in the 50s or 60s. And it's just in the woods. It's the only thing that's keeping you busy there is feeding the chipmunks and the squirrels and the blue jays. Like, it's legit. And that is something that I grew up with. And that is what I want to emulate for people, for my clients, because that is what you need to be able to be in the moment and enjoying things, and then put yourself in a headspace, in a mindset that you can actually look at the things that and the choices that have gotten you to where you are in that cycle, in that whatever, and also can become very clear on what you want things to look like and feel like when you get back to your everyday life, to
Yeah,
whatever.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Short story and then question.
Yeah.
I used to, so I would once a year I would go away for 4 days up. I'm originally from Walkerton, Ontario, and I would go up to Wyerton, which is in the middle of fucking nowhere. So is Walkerton.
I was like, wait a second.
Yeah. But
Metropolitan Walkerton. Yeah.
I would go up there in the middle of winter with my dog, for 4 days straight in the winter. So the reason why it was the winter was because the days were super short. And I would go,
Strategy.
well, exactly. Cause it's like
Yeah.
and I would get a cabin in the woods that had like electricity, but you would have to like burn a fire to keep warm. And no TV, no radio, no nothing, 4 days straight, and just kind of be with myself. And I'll tell you, it was, probably the most rejuvenating thing. Like when you talk about recuperating and rejuvenating, it was probably one of the most powerful things that I've done. And it reminds me of, your cabin. Outside of your cabin, question now. Outside of the cabin, what else do you do for mindfulness? I'm curious on what some of your best practices are.
Gardening. So just a couple of years ago, I got into gardening. This summer, I have to admit, has not been the best gardening year for me. There've been some things going on lately that I've prioritized over gardening, which is fine. To be fair, actually, there are like 3 really large raised garden beds, and they're full. They're completely full of overgrown weeds and wonderful things that I don't know what they are. So I'm a big tomato plant grower inside the house. I've got tomatoes that are growing higher than our curtains and like tomato plants all over the place. And so I've propagate those, and I get joy out of propagating these tomato plants and seeing roots growing, and seeing tomatoes growing from these little jars and then transplanting them and seeing them grow. And I get a lot of joy out of that, and like pruning them and making sure whatever. And so I was just like, oh my gosh, I've been so neglectful. I have all these tomato plants in these propagation station things, and I haven't planted them. So all I did, I spent one afternoon and I just went and I just weeded one bed, just one bed, and I transplanted the tomato plants just to one bed. That's all. And I'm like, that's probably all that's going to happen this summer, and I'm okay with that. So part of it is giving yourself grace on the fact that life happens. But I do have to say that gardening and being in the moment, also puzzling, like doing puzzles, you really like just with a couple, like, I don't know, puzzling is meditative. It's also dopamine inducing because every time you get a piece in, like you get a little shot of dopamine. So there's that. But those things that are quiet, not like that are tech free, that are, yeah, those are the things that kind of have me in the moment. Now, I love watching certain shows or watching movies, and there's a time for that. And just when I just need to do the rest and don't necessarily need the recovery, then those are great for me. But for me to actually those mindfulness moments, just sitting on the deck feeding chipmunks, I find that when you're trying to gain the trust of a chipmunk or something to see how close you can get to wildlife and to do whatever, I find that that's uh, spirit enhancing. I don't know, spirit lifting. And I love those. I love it. Yeah, I find being outdoors in the woods, going for a walk, like those sorts of things are bucket filling for me.
I love those things. Those are great tips. I mean, I don't think well, I shouldn't say many people don't prioritize those enough. I think you know, we've gotten into the habit in general of keeping up with social media and all that kind of stuff. And like puzzling was a thing. Like when you say puzzling, it's like, oh yeah, we used to do
Oh,
puzzles with my mom and dad. Like we
yeah.
would go away for 2-week vacations up on this lake in Halliburton area, and we would work on puzzles and
Just
the
put
old,
some music on. You could even have a
yeah.
glass of water, like have a drink if you want it. I'm not a big drinker, so it doesn't matter. But like, just have some music on. You and a couple of people
Yeah,
it's so
Billy Joel,
relaxing.
Billy Joel's greatest hits in a
Yeah.
puzzle,
And you
and
can
that's
leave it set up so that, every week you kind of work on something depending on how big it is. I find it just is a way to, you really can't focus on anything else while you're puzzling. So I know you mentioned, like you just mentioned that right now with tech and with computers at our fingertips and we're scrolling all the time and doing all these things, those are not giving our brains a break. So, that's why, and I mean, I'm not delusional enough to think that, that people are going to puzzle every weekend, or, be out in their gardens every weekend, or, find every night to do puzzling to kind of break free from that. I'm not, assuming that's going to happen, but they are suggestions and ideas that people can adopt if they want them. And that's why I believe that those kind of macro level retreats or escapes or whatever are really important, because I do understand how in today's daily life, like, the ideal is one thing, but the reality is not as easy to execute. So again, square peg coaching, it would be depending on what people's family lives are like whether they've got 7 kids that are all going in different directions, and how do we structure in the micro, meso, and macro levels of recovery so that you're not burnt out and you can be the best mom or parent or dad, or, for them, and how you can best provide for them. So everybody's different and everybody needs different structure. But I do think that some of those retreat options for people to just go, and again, it sometimes the micro meso are easier than the macro. Sometimes for some people, the macro are easier than the micro meso. So it really is trying to figure out what the best kind of plan, intentional strategy is for every person. Yeah.
Well, so let me ask you this question. I know we have a time constraint, so this might be the last one, but I wanted to get it in because I was thinking about it earlier. Um, where do you think, like, what starts to propel the forward movement in this process of, recuperating and rejuvenating yourself? Like, what do you like? What are the key components that have to happen in order for it to gain momentum?
You mean for a person to adopt these things?
Hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
the problem is I think people are waiting. They wait until a point of burnout, or till they're on borderline burnout before they realize that they need to recharge, and that they need to kind of regroup and recharge. Like, I mean, I don't understand why we're more concerned about recharging our phones every night than we are about recharging ourselves. It just doesn't make sense to me. But for people, it's just the way it is. And people wait until they're at a point of burnout. It's kind of like dehydration. Like, if you're thirsty, you're already dehydrated. So we're waiting too long before we're implementing these things, which is why I'm trying to um, emphasize the fact that these should be part of our intentional strategies for success, for sustainable high performance, for a life of thriving and general fulfillment and well-being. It's the the problem that right now I'm seeing is that the level that we, like, a lot of people are like, oh no, I'm at a level of high performance. I'm performing really, like, yeah, it's all good all across the board. But the problem is that we are at I believe, a societal, systemic level of high performance is lower. We've just adopted a lower level of high performance and accepted that as the new ideal. I don't think that the majority of people, I don't even think a fraction of people even know what it feels like to be fully recovered, to be fully rejuvenated anymore. So we've just kind of accepted that this is now the new level of high performance. This is now the new level of what we can do with our capacity, because nobody knows what it's like to be fully energized anymore, because we're all so tired, tech tired. We're all just kind of moving through the motions that we don't even know what that means. You know, the watches that measure your,
Yep. Like
it
the
says,
Apple Watch or the Aura
yeah.
Rings.
So I don't want to criticize them, because partly I don't totally understand where, like, when they say you're at 80% energy, are they saying you're at 80% energy? Someone told me that they take a 2 week, when you first get it, to take a baseline for 2 weeks. And so they get a baseline of generally if that person has been chronically tired for the last 13 years, then that baseline that they're getting over those 2 weeks is only going to be here. And then they're saying, oh, you're 80% of what we took as your like, we're
Of your
you're
shit
80%
baseline.
of your
Yeah,
shit
right.
baseline. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're less than high perform. You're
Yeah.
less than high
Yeah.
performance. So it's not your peak performance, but it's high performance. And we're treating our high performance as our peak performance. And I just want people to actually remember what it feels like to have, the abundance of energy.
It's funny you say that because, so I totally agree with that. And that probably was the alarm for you to have to go.
But it's a little reminder. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good.
I know you. I know we could totally get carried away and talk forever. I know.
Well, but I would say, it's funny that you say that because I had a friend of mine once who had, one of those devices. I don't want to say which one. But he's like, I wore this thing for like 2 or 3 weeks and it kept on telling me this and that. And it's like, the reality is like, I know if I got a good sleep, I know, like, I should know through my body, what is your body telling you?
Yeah.
And then here's the key, listen to it. It's like, listen to your body. Like, people go, oh, because a lot of people project. Like, I've just had a conversation with a guy a week ago and he was projecting about like, oh, you must be stressed. Like I was sitting there, and I often will sit with my arm crossed just because
it's comfortable.
It's actually comfortable. Like, so I'm just standing there. He's like, well, look at the way you're sitting. Like you're just stressed. I'm like, no, actually I'm not stressed. Like, that doesn't mean I don't get stressed, but I wasn't at the time, and I'm not really now. But it's you got to listen to your body, and I'll say this, like, you really made me think about, one thing that I've really focused on over the last few years is like, cause I was like, high performance was like, my thing. Like, I gotta be a high performance, like, individual. And then you build an identity around that. And I've said this before a million times on the podcast, but the most powerful, force in the human psyche is to remain consistent with how you identify yourself, what the story you tell yourself about yourself. And, I've changed that from high performance to mastery. And when I change that, like, label of like this, there's no end game here. Like, the end game is, well, my physical body is in a coffin and my spiritual body exists somewhere else in a energetic form somewhere, wherever that might be. But if you just change the concept from high performance to mastery, that for me was extremely helpful. But
it is. And that's why I think for me, I use the word thriving is your definition of mastery.
I love it.
I think that that's the same equation, because I want people to thrive. I want people to feel fulfilled. I want the people to feel successful in their entirety. Like that there's not a big gaping space where they've put so much effort in everything else that they're so lacking in their relationships or in their love life or in their, all of these different things. So I feel like it's, mastery. I like that. Same as thriving.
I know you have to go, and I want to be respectful to your time. We do. But guys, if you haven't listened to the first episode with Heather, I can't, she's one of my favorite people. And I mean that, like, I sincerely mean that. And I mean it for a whole bunch of ways, but she is who she shows up as. Like, she's one of the most authentic people that I've ever met. And everything that you've gone through, like, your mindset is so unique. And reading her book, Redefining Realistic, and, it's really, like, listen to her podcast that we recorded. Not any other podcast that she's recorded with anybody else. No, just kidding.
These ones are the best.
Just these ones are the best.
We do get into the nitty gritty. We do get into the nitty gritty.
Great conversations, but I really think you should, like, your mindset's amazing. I want to get you back on the show. I think it makes me think, well, one of our panels has to be about mindset because it's so critical, and you'd be the prime person to have on that with some, and I can think of some others. People, how do they find heathermoyse.com?
Yeah.
Correct?
heathermoyse.com. Yeah.
What's your Instagram?
Heather Moyse.
Heather Moyse.
Pretty easy to find. If you forget my last name, you just Google Heather bobsledding Canada. Like, it'll come up somewhere.
It'll come up, guaranteed. Yeah. Lots of stuff comes up there. And do you do, like, Square Peg Coaching? Is that a brand that people can find you on too?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if they want to do coaching, they can find me on my website, or just sometimes DMs. If there's a big influx of messages, I'm always worried that I'm going to miss. You can try messaging me there, and I might see it. I just always worry that I might miss something in the DMs. But the easiest way would be just either messaging if they want coaching through the website, or just message Heather at heathermoyse.com.
Yeah,
And
this was my intention was not to have you on to promote your coaching, because I didn't know you called it square peg coaching. But I will say this, guys, like if you're in a position where you don't feel like you're thriving, I highly recommend picking up the phone and calling Heather, but reaching out, whether on her website, Instagram, whatever, and touching base with her. I can't say enough about you, kiddo. I appreciate you being on the show. I know this was a fast conversation.
I know. I'm so sorry it was quick, but I promise we'll go multiples. We'll just keep doing them. Yeah.
I'm so grateful to have the ability to have the conversation with you. Thanks for taking the time. Guys, go back, listen to Heather, get her book, call her for coaching if you need it, or if you know somebody who does. She's awesome. Appreciate you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on, and I can't wait till the next time.
You're welcome. See you, kiddo. Thanks for listening. I appreciate you being with us. If you found value in the show and know a friend or coworker who could benefit from this conversation, please share the link via text or on social media. Remember, each share creates a ripple effect of knowledge and inspiration. And if this podcast has supported you in any way, please support us by clicking the follow or subscribe button. It helps us to improve the delivery of top quality content moving forward.
The views, information, or opinions expressed by guests during the Dwayne Kerrigan podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of Dwayne Kerrigan and his affiliates. Dwayne Kerrigan or the Dwayne Kerrigan podcast is not responsible for and does not verify the accuracy of any of the information contained in the podcast series. The primary purpose of this podcast is to educate and inform. Listeners are advised to consult with a qualified professional or specialist before making any decisions based on the content of this podcast.